the earth suit is like the vessel, and the fire suit is like the spirit that fills the vessel. And so it's like the divinity that is inherent in all matter. Hello there, beautiful humans. Melinda Joy, Crossroads Storyteller here, with an update regarding my deep dive into the Creative Liberation Now deck. I will be pulling at least one card from the Creative Liberation Now deck until I successfully publish it on a wider scale. If you want to hear the longer story, check out my beginnings video. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to support this project of mine. As always, you can sign up for the printing waitlist through the link in the video description /notes. So today, I want to report on my life and practice over the last month, update you on my reading and deck usage, take a closer look at the Creative Liberation Now cards I pulled this last month, and lastly, talk about my plans for the next month. All references that occur in this video will be in the video's description notes in the order in which I mention them, because I want you to have access to everything. Also, is this not the most gorgeous cloth ever? Shout out to my occult seamstress friend, only the most beautiful, badass seamstress I know. It's brilliant to have these kinds of connections. So, my life and practice. Oh man, you all, I felt like I was catching up this entire last month. I listened to the astrology podcast, like the astrology podcast, on YouTube at the beginning of the month, and I only listened to like 20 minutes of the forecast, but they were talking about how it would be a good time to let go of things instead of holding on to things that aren't working. And so I took that as a cue to sort of weed out my to-do list and like the things I was doing with my time. And so I stopped watching as much YouTube, and I reduced the amount of magic and or group activities I was doing. I wasn't really doing that very many, but I just stopped doing all of them for a moment. And I realized part of the habits I was forming around buying decks were trying to fill the hole of the desire to create my own decks. And so we have what I did this last month was I trimmed my mini Visconti tarot, and the cards were originally like this, with this massive white border on the front and the back. But this was the backs after I trimmed them, and I thought they look gorgeous this way. And the fronts, the titles aren't all super perfect or anything, but that's okay. I don't really need the titles. But I wanted the backs to be balanced, and so I kept the titles as they are. But I really like it this way with the sharp edges, and it's just like a smidge tinier. So my plan next is to create some kind of bag that feels like it keeps this safe enough that I could carry this around with me in like my fanny pack or my pocket or something like that, so that if at any point in my time in life, walking around the house or the rest of the world, I desire a tarot deck, I will have one, and that might make me feel nice. Slash, it was fun to have the creative project of trimming it. So yes, I'm working at filling that hole with what it actually wants to be filled with, creative projects related to decks. So more on that to come. We'll see how it plays out and how I record it for you all. And I also didn't read very much this month, like hardly any. So that was not really intentional, but that happened. So all of these things cleared up a lot of mental space for me. And then I started clearing up some somatic, that's like physical body, pentacle suit space, also by beginning to work with the emotional freedom technique on a clinical level with someone who's been clinically trained, not just me tapping my own affirmations or whatever I think would be fun to tap. And that's been super uber helpful. I actually messed up the timing of my EFT therapy appointment today, and I was so bummed. And so that's part of why I'm recording right now, because this makes me feel like I didn't waste my day and I still got to do something that I value, even though it wasn't what I had planned. That's okay. Plans don't always work out. That's part of life. So one thing that's interesting was with the Drop 'em 78 challenge, I did post to YouTube every single day on time the card of the day. And then I did end up posting to Instagram. If you heard my last video, you know I was struggling with that. What I decided to do was I sign on to Instagram. I dump a week's worth of posts all at once, and then I delete Instagram off of my phone. That's how I'm making that happen. So, for better or for worse, that's happening. But part of all of those posts has been writing out all of the 3Ds. I think they were definition, description, discovery. And so that's been quite the task to do, and it's been tons of fun to research the cards that way. And I definitely, even though I felt like I was catching up all month, I found a groove that felt really sustainable, and I started thinking about all the other things I wanted to add to my to-do list, and then I crashed, which, you know, of course, because I needed to be humbled and reminded that I can be super grateful for just the opportunity to share the Creative Liberation Now deck at all, and enjoy the rest of my life that I get to do instead of making other videos. And the other videos will come when it's time. So I believe that sums up my life and quick practice update. So I did not do any additional reading into the 78 degrees of wisdom, but I did do some research into what I talked about in my last video with the different with the Hebrew letters. So just to update you on the conversation at hand, on page 67, Rachel Pollack says, with the Hebrew letter Ayin spelled capital I-A-I-N. The chariot carries the quality of speech. Okay, so in my brain, I was like, that's not right. The letter for, oh my goodness, that I associate with the chariot is chet. Guttural. Chet. And then I talked about some of the other cards that go with this card sometimes. Okay, so I was thinking that perhaps it was a different or a transliteration of eyeing, because it was the closest in sound when pronounced, not because it made any kind of associative sense. So I thought what I would do is I would research these two letters further and see if there were associations with speech. So I started off with the Kabbalah tree, Journey of Balance and Growth by the one and only Rachel Pollack. And she did say that eyeing has an association with speech because the path of eyeing is between Tiferet and Hod. And Hod has to do with speech because Hod is associated with Mercury. So since the path of eyeing is connected to the sphere of Mercury, the path of eyeing has an association with speech. And then I started exploring her tarot wisdom. And in this book, she includes the associations that Levy, I'm not sure if there's a proper way to pronounce Levy, the associations that he had with the cards, and it includes Zion. And at this moment, I had a little like kind of moment because, full disclosure, I am definitely have some kind of dyslexic experience, even though I have not been diagnosed. I'm just high functioning, I guess, whatever that means. But last video, when I was thinking about these things out loud, I was talking about how eyeing and Zadi look similar. And Zadi, the transliteration of it is a TZ sound. So it's a funny Z sound, but it's a Z sound, sort of like the Z in pizza. And so in my head, I had already made the connection between eyeing and the Z sound, but Zion is not Zadi. Zion looks like this. And then I was like, oh, I know what has happened. So I pulled out my Christine Payne-Towler because that's who I think of when I think of non-Golden Dawn associations to the cards. And according to Christine Payne-Towler, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8 corresponding to Zion or to Gemini. because Zion is the card associated with Gemini. So this makes so much more sense because Zion and Gemini are associated, and everyone, from what I understand, agrees on that. And of course, according to the people who were assigning letters before the Golden Dawn started assigning Hebrew letters, they would have assigned this Z, this Zion, to the chariot, because they would have started with Aleph, with the magician, instead of starting the Hebrew letters with Aleph and the Fool. And Zion as well as Ayin both are a lot more similar to whatever this whoever edited this was trying to write down here. So I think I sorted it out. I think Rachel Pollack met Zion and may have even wrote out Zion in her manuscript, but thanks to English focused editors, there's a minor error, but no worries. Of course, I thought I was like brilliant when I first found it, but it's pretty simple and chill and not nearly as big of a deal as I was thinking of it as. No joyful toddler this week, or sorry, this month. I did pick back up in reading the first of Read Like the Devil series, and yeah, basically felt justified in doing so because of the Visconti deck that I was trimming and that I intend to carry around with me. So that feels really good. It's something that's on my phone, accessible to read whenever, however I am, even if I'm like breastfeeding or stuck in a weird spot because I just breastfed, or you know, whatever. Stuck in a weird spot because the babe falls asleep. Yeah, okay. I did implement one of the recipes from the Cider book, and that is super fun. I'm excited to see how that turns out. And decks I used. So I got to do some tarot readings for other people by email, and that made me so happy. I have never done that before. Doing a tarot reading that is communicated via script instead of verbal, auditory. Yeah, that was a first for me, but I absolutely loved it. The sort of like channeling process was just fascinating and so exciting. And yes, so one of the readings I used this combo, and one of the readings I used this combo, Moon Baby Tarot, #NoFilter Mother Tarot. And then in addition to using the Creative Liberation Now for the #DropEm78, I also explored some cards for personal use, and I had so much fun. Okay, so I found the Rainbow Heart Tarot to be like a feminist version of This Might Hurt. Absolutely delicious. Ultimate goodness. Signs of the Times is new to me. I first got excited about it because I discovered it was created by a Black woman, which totally here to support the Black women, be they creators or some other role in the world. And so in addition to that, though, the Signs of the Times, that's the name of like manuscript. It's like really thin little pamphlets that are printed in mass for Seventh-day Adventists to share their like message with the world. If Seventh-day Adventism is a huge sort of out of left field kind of drop for you, you can check out my tarot origin story. But the Signs of the Times is a title that was present through my entire childhood. My grandmother subscribed to these pamphlets, and then she would like drop them off randomly wherever she went, where people might be waiting or pausing in their day and might stop and see it. So because of those two reasons, I got this deck. And since I didn't actually get the deck for the deck, I've been pleasantly surprised by how brilliant the deck is. And it goes really well, in my opinion, with the Rainbow Heart. Then this is a deck that I'm going to talk a little bit more about when I share the decks I got for my birthday video. It is the Oracle that Ellen Lorenzi Prince created, and so that has made a couple of appearances. I started exploring playing cards because of the collection of playing cards I found from high school. I got really excited about using playing cards for divination, but I haven't like studied it very thoroughly, and so I thought Robert M. Place's sort of semi-illustrated playing cards would be a really good place to start. And then Visconti Tarot showed up a little bit here and there too. So yeah, I really went all out with the decks. I had basically, since getting pregnant, I had really like focused in on just a couple of decks, like one at a time or something like that. But I really opened up to a lot more decks this last month. So it was super cool being able to get really close and personal with the Creative Liberation Now, Earth, and Fire suits this last month. Hashtag Drop'em78 starts off with the Pentacles to ground. So the birth of Earth depicts the Lakota myth of White Buffalo Woman, and Second Earth incorporates rainbow sky serpents, which show up in several different cosmologies. We've got play off of Newton's clock universe theory in the Third Earth, except an emphasis on cooperative communities and cooperative living. We've got the sacred mountain of on Hawaii in the Fourth Earth. We've got this super epic battle in Fifth Earth, and these statues coming to life and exiting their cement prison and being released. We've got some intergenerational coming of age represented in 6 Earth, and a journey that is the emphasis instead of the destination in the 7th Earth. We've got sand mandala in 8th Earth. We've got some super epic sunflowers in 9th Earth, which really stood out to me a lot this last month because I pulled the 9 of Wands in the Rainbow Heart Tarot a lot, like so many times. I wasn't keeping track, but an excessive amount. And then in my last pull from Signs of the Times, I also pulled the sunflower. So that all felt really significant and synchronistic for me. And the sunflowers in 9th Earth are emphasized because sunflowers remove toxins from the soil, but they store it in their stalks and their leaves, so the toxins aren't in the seeds. And the rest of the image in 9th Earth has this epic balancing act with a prismatic rainbow light shining out of this individual, which I believe is supposed to be like this person is sort of like the light of the sun for these sunflowers, maybe, you know, if it works for you in the translation of your reading. Got some Lemurian crystals and an epic black snake dance, as well as some standing stones and some pyramids in 10th Earth. We've got epic plant medicine and fungi medicine in Feeler Healer of Earth, which made me very happy. I have found some of these specific plants to be supportive in my healing practice and experience. We've got the jaguar and eagle in Visionary Dreamer. Also these butterflies. Alchemist Activist of Earth is this like cosmic DJ. And Builder Organizer of Earth is this like earth body knowledge. It's like unity consciousness, but grounded. Yeah, I'm not sure how else to explain that. Then the essences in this deck, of course, don't have a correlation with a traditional 78 card deck. Now, there are decks like the Minchiati deck that have something similar to an Essence of Earth card, but outside of Minchiati or other decks that are playing off of a Minchiati system, you don't see Essences of Earth anywhere. As well, in addition to that, the guidebook doesn't have a description for the Essence of Earth, so I had to do some meditating on all of the cards that I had pulled beforehand, and I saved it for last because of that, so I could meditate on the rest of the cards. And I found the primary theme of the Earth suit was sort of like an LVX, or a birth, death, transmutation kind of cycle understanding, an Osiris myth, Eleusinian mysteries kind of concept. So when it came to the fire suit, you have the birth of fire, which had to do with ancient Mayan tradition related to a specific deity's mask that was made out of turquoise. I apologize, I don't remember his name, but it had to do with turquoise and mask and springtime. And then second of fire, we have this metamorphosizing centaur holding a world, which is sort of reminiscent of the world that is held in the RWS Two of Wands, except I guess we could argue if it's being held with the same kind of reverence. We have third fire, which had to do with the trinity of divinity, especially masculine trinities. The ones represented were Hindu, but other ones count also. And then fourth fire, we have our celebration, our dancers, our butterflies. Fifth fire, we have the Lord of Strife. Here's a representation of Pharaoh, and one of the hashtags for this one was something to the effect of, which Pharaoh is this? And it made me think of a sort of, if like we're asking ourselves, sort of like, am I presenting my Jekyll or my Hyde in this moment? But also in a mytho sense, maybe mythopoetic, I'm not sure. We have an association with the Exodus and tarot, like Exodus in the Hebrew Bible, and there's a pharaoh involved in that story, and he's a significantly different pharaoh than the one that Joseph knew. And yeah, if you know that story, you know why the Lord of Strife would be connected to him, potentially, because he doesn't make life easy for himself. Sixth fire, we have the affirmation for this one was, I am already victorious. Seventh fire, we have more emphasis on this warrior theme, which I didn't mention yet, but definitely was brought up in several parts. We have the eighth fire with our rainbow bubble and our predatory dragon and innocent child. And before I start covering these up too much, I want to point out something that I think is super cool that I didn't notice until the Drop 'em 78/108 challenge. There's a sun that is cycling around the cards, and it'll continue to work its way through the cards. Ninth fire, we have the female counterpart that is the sun god Ra. We've got 10th fire, and now the sun has gone to the center of the solar system, which I think is cool. Feeler healer of fire, we have some emulation, self-emulation as metaphor, spiritual emulation, as well as the obvious, more literal, as the activism that happens in some places. We have this one I think is interesting because it talks about my many relations, And so I guess I was trying to sort of save this to the end with the essence cards, but there's this hardcore theme of fire being like our spiritual essence. So the earth suit is like the vessel, and the fire suit is like the spirit that fills the vessel. And so it's like the divinity that is inherent in all matter. And this card represents how we aren't the only expression of this spirit. Like, we have spiritual relations, we have a spiritual family, we have a spiritual ancestors, we have spiritual compadres, participants, friendships, etc. And I just thought that was really cool with the sort of like prismic representation of the visionary dreamer, as well as this totem parallel represented there. Then we have alchemist, activist of fire, and now the fire has gone from something that consumes and completely transforms to something that sort of bakes and solidifies. And so we have these clay, Venus of Willendorf, one of those, Willendorf, and they're clay figures that were also sort of baked in the fire. So different aspects of alchemical transformation. And then we have the builder organizer of fire with our Queen of Sheba. There we go. And then we have this essence of fire, which we already had associations with the sun and the like spring and the beginning of life, as well as like the ending of the sun cycle. The sun sort of like dies each night, as well as this, like I sort of mentioned before, this warrior theme. This I think perhaps the Lord of Strife might be more of a fighter than a warrior. You can read my post on the essence of fire to get more information about how I am distinguishing between a fighter and a warrior, which I thought was a really fun mental exercise, if nothing else. So, of course, I did not have any duplicates this month because I was choosing cards face up instead of turning cards. However, I did pull my Gladstar Codex at random, and this was my, let's see if I can remember the word. This was my calibration deck, and I chose cards at random to give me more information about the Creative Liberation Now card I was studying and writing about at the moment. And so even though there are more than enough cards to have covered this last month and some, I pulled some multiple times. So I thought the Creative Liberation Now cards that these were pulled with would be interesting to look at. So we've got desire. which is really significant for this card specifically, because this card has a book connected to it, which I thought was fun. There's something about this Creative Liberation Now deck that instead of giving a description with paragraphs and like clear logical details, what they do is they put a whole bunch of associations through hashtags and lists and a poem. And the person reading the book, at least the version that I have, gets to sort of go on a treasure hunt and sort out what the connections are between these different associations, to get a better understanding of the card, which, like I said, I think is brilliant, because that's how like metaphysical training works in my experience, using associations to train our consciousness to be aware of the connections that are already existing on a more subtle plane. So back to Sixth of Earth. One of the associations with Sixth of Earth is a book where someone explains the initiation ceremonies of a indigenous society, community, group. And the initiation occurs when there is an expression of romantic and or sexual interest in expressing that aspect of the self. And so that makes perfect sense to me that this would be connected to desire. And of course, the Gladstar Codex has a very positive understanding of desire as something that is crucial to our connection to self and our ability to move forward in integrity, knowing the correct moves to make and correct directions to go. And the initiation process is to help the individual grok this concept that on a deeper level, there's a deeper marriage, and it's a soul marriage, and it's between the self and deity. And the soul need, like SOUL, need for this marriage is not something that can be met by a physical person-to-person marriage. And so that's why the initiation is so important, so that the individuals can go about their romantic and sexual interests as a whole person, a complete person that's not searching for themselves in another person. And then the alchemist activist of Earth, I thought, was perhaps a representation of the initiation gone correctly. Like, the Sixth of Earth is this reorienting to authentic, true, real desire for the divine self within the self. And the alchemist activist of Earth is someone who has discovered that, has grokked it, has digested it, has marinated in it, has made it their truth, and is expressing themselves from that place. Cool. That was fun. So then we have Upgrade, which I thought was super cool, is that this is oak leaves, and there's a lot of oaks around me, and it's a really important part of the indigenous communities that used to live here and still live in parts of here. Okay, so Upgrade. we have Ninth Earth, which I pulled first, and I've already talked about a little bit. This ability to absorb toxins and do something useful with them, and there's also this really big emphasis, like the sunflowers follow the sun, and the sun was part of the fire suit, as we just saw, and there's this divine light shining forth through from this Ninth Earth individual, and there is this fire sort of baking and solidifying and perhaps activating this individual. And I was thinking that perhaps the Ninth Earth is like the how-to of the upgrade, and the alchemist activist is sort of the doing or the being of the upgrade. Yeah, I guess I don't have very much more to say about that. Let's see how what seeds or what plants those seeds grow into. And then we have Glory, which is the very last card in the Gladstar Codex, sort of like storyline. And I thought it was super cool to have Glory in 8th Fire, because it really clarified that even if this serpent is predatory and dangerous to this child, Glory or the divine fire or the life force that flows through all of us is within both of these. And these are both aspects of us. Like we have within our individual selves a predator and an innocent, and we let them out to do their will as we see fit. And sometimes it's in balance and sometimes it's not in balance, but the point is that them in and of themselves are not wrong or bad. It's sort of the roles we give them that may be or may not be in alignment with their gifts that they have to bring to our personality or our larger self-expression or whatever is in question. And then I thought that Glory was perhaps letting us know that the essence of fire is the glory that flows through the Gladstar Codex, that flows through the earth body, that is igniting all of these transformations that the Gladstar Codex and the Creative Liberation now are attempting to both initiate and sort of provide a gentle guide for how to navigate. I'm talking about the collective upgrade into our full glory. So, what I intend to do next. I'm going to do the water and air suit for Drop'em 78/Drop'em 108. I am already behind again. I definitely caught up last month, and then I discovered that if I only focus on my creative expression, I don't get the rest of my life and person needs met. So had to do some self-care life maintenance first. And I will get back on my posts and we'll see how I do at getting back on track up to date with everybody and the challenge, and if I don't, I don't. I'm still gonna go through the whole deck because I still want to know this deck in that kind of way, whether or not I do it with the collective that is doing this challenge. So I need a creative project. Like I showed you before, I have the deck I trimmed this last month, but I need more. Making a bag for it is not going to be a good enough project for me. So I have a couple ideas of ways to start creating some stencils for a specific kind of collage deck I think would be fun to make, as well as starting to collect some information. I've already like magically processed all of this information. I just collected it in a haphazard way, so it's not all in one journal, and it's not all in one recording, and it's not all in one note. And so I'm gonna see what I can do to collect all of that information in one place so that I can then use it in a creative project I would like to use it in. So those are the two sort of creative bumper rails for that to sort of help me stay on track for my creative projects that I would like to add to this larger Creative Liberation Now project, which I think makes perfect sense. It's in the name of the deck, y'all. Creative liberation through creativity, self-expression. Yeah, it's all there. If it wasn't clear in this video, definitely go read my community posts on YouTube or my home feed page on Instagram and get a closer look at what makes this deck so cool. So, if you've been keeping up with me, you know I've been desiring to make more than a single video a month, and with the holidays coming up, I've decided not to make that a goal of any kind. I'm not gonna try to make more than one video a month, sorry, I misspoke. I'm not going to try and publish more than one video a month, but if I would like to, I'm going to record videos. So that means that 2024 might be a year of a whole bunch of past videos finally being published. And we'll see how that goes. Might be super weird, might be not weird at all. We'll find out. So yeah, that's the plan. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so that you can see more of what is coming. So many blessings. Oh, like the light show that was this video. The time change is messing with my video recording time. Used to have more nice daylight hours, and last night just tried really hard to squeeze it through, but it didn't want to come through.